takes a piece of paper, turns it around, and she pushes it to me and said, "Please say yes."
At 76 years old, Richard Gere remains one of Hollywood's most fascinating leading men. A star who not only defined an era of romance films, but also lived a life filled with mystery, admiration, and unforgettable connections. Throughout his decades-long career, Gere has been linked with some of the most talented women in the industry. But behind the glamour and the headlines, there were a select few actresses who left a lasting mark on him, women he secretly admired, cherished, and respected. These weren't just fleeting crushes or passing fascinations. They were women who represented something greater, beauty paired with intelligence, charm mixed with strength, and talent that stood the test of time. From the fairy tale chemistry he shared with Julia Roberts, to the emotional depth he found working alongside Diane Lane, to the fearless artistry of Susan Sarandon, each woman brought out something unique in Gere, and when you add in the electrifying presence of Sharon Stone, the timeless elegance of Catherine Zeta-Jones, and the mysterious charm of Winona Ryder, you start to see a picture not of an aging actor reminiscing about the past, but of a man reflecting on the women who shaped his journey, both on and off the screen. This is not just a list of names. This is Richard Gere's story of admiration, passion, and respect for 6 remarkable actresses who defined his career and left him with memories that, even today, continue to inspire him. When people think of Richard Gere's career, one name almost always comes to mind first: Julia Roberts. Their story together began in 1990 with the film Pretty Woman, a movie that not only changed both of their careers forever, but also became one of the most beloved romantic comedies in history. Gere, already an established star, and Roberts, still early in her career, created a chemistry so authentic that audiences felt they were witnessing something real. For Gere, Julia Roberts wasn't just a co-star, she was the definition of Hollywood magic. Her radiant smile, natural charisma, and effortless charm elevated every scene they shared. Off-screen, Gere admired her wit, her kindness, and the way she carried herself with such grounded humility despite her rapid rise to fame. Their reunion in Runaway Bride nearly a decade later proved that their bond hadn't faded. If anything, it had grown stronger, a testament to the trust and affection they held for one another. Julia Roberts, in Gere's eyes, represented the fairy tale version of love, a timeless partner who made every romantic scene unforgettable. But while Roberts embodied the fairy tale, Diane Lane brought something entirely different to Gere's life: emotional depth and realism. Their most memorable collaboration came in 2008's Nights in Rodanthe, a story about 2 lonely people finding love later in life. Unlike the glamorous sheen of Pretty Woman, this film carried a quieter, more vulnerable energy, and audiences could feel the truth in every look and every word. That truth came from the real-life respect Gere and Lane shared. Gere often praised Lane's ability to dive headfirst into a role, to show both strength and fragility in equal measure. He admired her fearlessness, her raw honesty, and her refusal to settle for shallow performances. While Julia Roberts may have represented Hollywood's dream, Diane Lane symbolized the kind of love that feels real, the kind built on shared pain, second chances, and vulnerability. Fans noticed this too. Many believed that Gere and Lane's on-screen chemistry felt almost too authentic to be acting, sparking endless rumors about whether their bond extended beyond the cameras. Gere never confirmed such speculation, but his admiration for Lane spoke volumes. To him, she wasn't just a beautiful actress. She was a mirror of truth, a reminder that love in its purest form is messy, complex, and worth fighting for. Together, Julia Roberts and Diane Lane reveal 2 sides of Gere's romantic legacy. Roberts brought him into the spotlight of cinematic romance, giving audiences a fantasy they never wanted to end. Lane, on the other hand, grounded him in realism, offering a reflection of what love looks like when the cameras fade and life takes over. For Richard Gere, these women weren't just colleagues. They were muses, partners in storytelling, and living reminders of why he became an actor in the first place: to explore the many faces of love, from the magical to the profoundly human. If Julia Roberts and Diane Lane defined Richard Gere's softer side, then Susan Sarandon and Sharon Stone represented something entirely different. Boldness, fearlessness, and a presence that could not be ignored. These women didn't just act, they commanded. And for Gere, their strength was every bit as captivating as their beauty. Susan Sarandon has long been known as one of Hollywood's most uncompromising actresses. From Thelma and Louise to Dead Man Walking, her roles have consistently pushed boundaries and challenged audiences. Gere admired that fearlessness. For him, Sarandon wasn't simply a beautiful woman on screen, she was a force of nature. Her performances carried moral weight, emotional truth, and a level of authenticity that could shake viewers to their core. But it wasn't just her acting that Gere respected. Off-screen, Sarandon was outspoken, unafraid to use her fame to speak out about social and political issues. She took risks, sometimes controversial ones, but always stayed true to her convictions. To a man like Gere, who valued substance as much as style, that was irresistible. Sarandon represented the kind of woman who doesn't bend to Hollywood's rules, but instead creates her own. And then there was Sharon Stone, a completely different kind of presence. While Sarandon was about grounded realism and moral fire, Stone was the epitome of cinematic danger and allure. Her breakout performance in Basic Instinct left an indelible mark on Hollywood and on Gere himself. She brought an intensity, a mix of intelligence and seduction that no one else could replicate. For Gere, Stone embodied the femme fatale, the woman who could own a room without saying a word. But beyond the provocative roles, Gere admired her sharp mind and resilience. Stone navigated a notoriously difficult industry with strength, reinventing herself again and again, proving that she was much more than just a glamorous face. What makes Sarandon and Stone fascinating in Gere's story is how they balance one another. Sarandon brought authenticity, fearlessness, and the courage to challenge systems. Stone brought electricity, mystery, and the thrill of danger. Together, they represent the boldest sides of womanhood, the sides that fascinated Gere just as much as the softer, romantic images created with Roberts and Lane. To Gere, both actresses served as reminders that love and admiration aren't always about comfort. Sometimes they're about challenge, about being drawn to women who refuse to play safe, who make you think, and who push you out of your own comfort zone. It's no wonder, then, that Susan Sarandon and Sharon Stone hold a special place in Richard Gere's admiration. They are not just icons of Hollywood. They are proof that true beauty lies in courage, conviction, and the ability to take risks, both on screen and in life. If Susan Sarandon and Sharon Stone embodied boldness and fire, then Catherine Zeta-Jones and Winona Ryder represented something altogether different: elegance and mystery. These two women, while vastly different in their approach to Hollywood, left a profound impression on Richard Gere for qualities that went beyond physical beauty. They each carried an aura that drew people in and made them unforgettable. For Gere, Catherine Zeta-Jones was the very definition of timeless glamour. When they worked together on the musical film Chicago in 2002, Gere was already a veteran actor. But it was Zeta-Jones who lit up the screen with a dazzling performance that blended sophistication, strength, and raw star power. Gere admired how she carried herself like the great icons of old Hollywood, elegant, polished, and larger than life. But beyond the glamour, Gere respected her discipline and work ethic. Zeta-Jones approached acting with focus and determination, giving everything she had to each role. In Chicago, her portrayal of Velma Kelly was sharp, magnetic, and commanding, so powerful that it earned her an Academy Award. Gere saw in her someone who wasn't just an actress, but a consummate performer, able to blend acting, dancing, and singing into a complete package of artistry. For him, Catherine Zeta-Jones symbolized elegance not just in appearance, but in dedication and skill. Then there was Winona Ryder, who stood in sharp contrast. Where Zeta-Jones was polished and glamorous, Ryder was mysterious, fragile, and unpredictable. Rising to fame in the late 1980s and 1990s with films like Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, and Reality Bites, Ryder became the face of an entire generation's complicated emotions. She embodied vulnerability and depth, often playing characters who seemed caught between innocence and rebellion. For Gere, Ryder's appeal wasn't about perfection. It was about her ability to capture something raw and real, something that spoke to the hidden struggles of human life. She wasn't afraid to show brokenness, to portray flawed and complex characters. That honesty set her apart in an industry that often celebrated only surface beauty. Gere admired that courage, the courage to be messy, to be human, and to remain enigmatic. What makes Zeta-Jones and Ryder fascinating as a pair in Gere's story is how they reflect two very different ideals of admiration. Catherine Zeta-Jones represented the glamour and sophistication of classic Hollywood, the dreamlike fantasy of what a star could be. Winona Ryder, on the other hand, reflected the haunting beauty of imperfection, the magnetic pull of mystery. For Gere, both women reminded him that admiration doesn't come in a single form. Sometimes it's about elegance and perfection. Other times it's about vulnerability and enigma. Together, Zeta-Jones and Ryder reveal the wide range of qualities that Richard Gere found captivating in women, not just their beauty, but their spirit, artistry, and ability to leave an impression that lasts for decades. By the time Richard Gere turned 76, he had lived through a career most actors could only dream of. He was the romantic lead of a generation, the star of unforgettable films, and a man admired around the world for both his talent and his personal charm. But when he looked back on the women who left the greatest impression on him, Julia Roberts, Diane Lane, Susan Sarandon, Sharon Stone, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Winona Ryder, what he remembered wasn't just beauty, fame, or on-screen chemistry. It was something far deeper. Each of these women represented a different part of Gere's journey and his own understanding of love, admiration, and artistry. Julia Roberts symbolized the fairy tale side of romance, the kind of connection that felt magical and larger than life, giving audiences a dream they never wanted to wake up from. Diane Lane, on the other hand, grounded him in truth, reminding him that love could be fragile, messy, and profoundly real. Susan Sarandon brought a different kind of admiration. For Gere, she embodied courage, not just in the roles she played, but in the way she lived her life, unafraid to speak out and to take risks. Sharon Stone added another layer: mystery, electricity, and danger. She reminded him of the thrill of passion, of how unpredictable and powerful attraction could be. Catherine Zeta-Jones reminded Gere of the timeless glamour of Hollywood. She brought elegance and professionalism, the ability to light up a screen in the way stars of old once did. And finally, Winona Ryder captured the beauty of vulnerability and enigma, the haunting reminder that sometimes the most captivating people are the ones who let us glimpse their flaws and their mysteries. When taken together, these women reveal the values that Richard Gere holds close, even in his later years. To him, admiration isn't just about appearance. It's about character, artistry, courage, and the ability to make an impact that lasts long after the cameras stop rolling. They weren't just actresses who crossed his path. They were living reminders of why he fell in love with acting in the first place, because it allowed him to explore love, passion, and humanity in all its different forms. Now, at 76, Richard Gere doesn't need to chase roles or seek out admiration. He has already cemented his legacy. But when he reflects on the 6 actresses who left a mark on him, what shines through is respect. Respect for their craft, for their individuality, and for the way they shaped not only his career, but also the way audiences remember him. In the end, the women Richard Gere admired most represent more than just Hollywood glamour. They represent the complexity of love and admiration, the fairy tale, the truth, the courage, the fire, the elegance, and the mystery. And in that way, they also tell the story of Gere himself, a man who spent his life searching for meaning not only in romance, but also in the art of human connection.